Good afternoon. I'm John Hart, the co-founder of the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions, or C3 Solutions, and I'm also the executive editor of our news magazine, C3. Welcome to our Right Voices interview series, where we talk to conservative leaders and innovators who are promoting bottom-up rather than top-down solutions to our nation's energy and environmental challenges. Today, we're honored to have a very special guest, Congressman G.T. Thompson. Congressman Thompson represents Pennsylvania's 15th congressional district. He was elected in 2018, and he's a ranking member of the House Agricultural Committee. So Congressman Thompson, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
John, it's great to be with you, and thank you for your leadership on C3. It's just so important and instrumental, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to visit with you on related topics here today.
Well, thank you so much. And just to give you and our viewers some background, we're a relatively new organization. So, I worked on the Hill for years. I was Tom Coburn's communications director. I grew up in Kansas, and little did I know that I would end up moving from Kansas to the East Coast to become a wheat farmer. So as I look out over my computer screen, I've got a wheat field. I've got 62 acres not far from Harpers Ferry in Maryland. And a couple of years ago, Drew Bond, who was Ed Fulner's former chief of staff, I had Drew come out. He has a solar company, and we thought, gosh, how can we put solar on my sustainable farm? And we had this chuckle of these two, right wingers talking about solar and sustainability. We thought if only our friends on the progressive side could see what we're up to. And we, the kind of the laughter turned into an epiphany, and thought, we need to increase the number of people on the field and make our voices known and support the good work of people like you and others who are in this space. So that's a little bit about us and who we are. So again, as we want to use the series to elevate voices, and your voice has been really valuable and constructive. Maybe we could start by talking about, you have a great op-ed that you placed recently in the Examiner, talking about natural solutions and farmers. Maybe you could just kind of give us a little bit about your background, your district, how you got into this area of issues, and what you want to get across to people.
Well, sure. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. My background is was a rehabilitation therapist. I was a rehabilitation therapist, a rehab service manager, licensed nurse administrator. Actually, I spent my career, it was 28 years working in healthcare, serving people facing life-changing disease and disability. That's how I earned my income. I was able to, through that, it was nonprofit community healthcare. I was able to support my family and really make a difference in people's lives. And that's something I've always been dedicated to. That's sort of my, that's what drives me. That's kind of my mission, is to be able to make a difference in the lives of other people, and to be able to continue to do that. I did it in the community. I was a school board. I describe myself as a recovering school board member. That was, a volunteer firefighter, EMT, rescue technician, lay pastor. Just community service has been an important part of my life. I'm also a proud Eagle Scout, Scoutmaster for 30 years. I've been actually involved in scouting this year, 50 years, which is pretty scary to step back and think that I've done something for a half a century. I don't feel that old. Yeah. So that's, my district is the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District. Is very rural. There are 18 congressional seats currently in Pennsylvania. I represent 24% of the land mass. Agriculture is our #1 industry in the state of Pennsylvania, but also certainly my congressional district. And our farmers and landowners played an important role in the 15th district, as they do in where you're at in Maryland and all the states, in terms of providing us with the food, the fiber, the energy resources, the building materials that we all rely upon, no matter where we live, wherever we lay our head, whether it's rural America, suburban America, or urban America. I like to say, without a robust rural economy and the success of those farmers and ranchers, we all wake up and cold, dark, and hungry. And so, I'm very proud of my district. My district is home to, probably the most valued hardwoods in the world. And the forest products industry is very strong there. It's home to Pennsylvania's only national forest, the Allegheny National Forest. kind of small, about 500,000 acres compared to out west, but probably the most profitable for us because of the value of our hardwoods that we have. We're also, though, rich in other natural resources. We mine the coal there to fuel the Industrial Revolution and provide the arsenal of democracy to win 2 world wars. But we also, I actually represent the very first commercial oil well anywhere in the world, which is it's a Titusville address. It's Drake Well and actually in Venango County. And we've been, we have this wonderful natural gas as well beneath our feet there. So, and all those remain important job providers. And I'm, very proud that since my first term, and I was first elected in 2008, sworn in 2009, that I've served on the House Agriculture Committee. Been proud to be a part of that. Helped work on the 2014-2018 Farm Bill. I've chaired a number of the subcommittees. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And it served as in the past as vice chair of the full House Agriculture Committee during the last Farm Bill. Proud to serve there today as the Republican leader.
That's great. One thing you brought up that I wanted to flag is we recently published a paper authored by a gentleman named Nick Loris, and the title of it was called "Free Economies or Clean Economies." And what Nick did is he looked at the Index of Economic Freedom and found a strong correlation between countries that are more free economically and those that are cleaner. And you mentioned earlier a couple of things that stood out. One is, in Pennsylvania, you did burn coal, and you still do. And that economic vitality and wealth actually enabled the development of clean energy technology. And we're going to see that play out in other developing countries where you've got, India creating a middle class the size of our country, over the past 10, 15 years. And then this issue of property rights too is another one that we've highlighted, where, the fact that in our country, people own the rights below their feet, where that isn't true in other countries. And so for me as a landowner, I care deeply about my own land because I'm responsible for it. Nobody else is going to come do it for me. But I think there's an ethic, and I think that's what I hear you describe your district. That's part of what I think you're articulating. And tell us a little bit more about natural solutions. But that's a term that we talk about a lot, but people may not know what that means. What does that mean exactly when you talk about natural solutions?
Well, I think it's for natural solutions. It really is. It's about what at its very basics, it's what God's blessed us with in terms of natural solutions. It's the resources that He has provided us, and quite frankly, it's I really define a lot of it as agriculture. And that also includes forestry, because trees are a crop. As I like to say, down south, where they line them up like soldiers, or in our part of the country where we free range our trees. Right. But good, healthy forests, and our farmlands are the largest carbon sinks in the world. Mm-hmm. And so those are natural solutions. And if we manage them in a way that's healthy, now if we allow them to, let's start with the forest. If we don't manage them properly, which means that we're routinely cutting trees down and then planting new generations of trees, having multiple generations of trees in a forest is a healthy forest. And when you do that, you provide not just the best habitat for different types of species, but you maximize the carbon sink and the amount of carbon that is taken out of the air. If you don't do that, then you wind up with wildfires like we see in the Western United States. They're heavy carbon emitters, or trees that die, fall over, decay, and they also emit carbon there. And on the agriculture side, it's, agriculture has always been science, technology, and innovation. Mm-hmm. Even those first farmers, in the very beginning of humankind, they used science. It was simple trial and error. It was kind of crude and rudimentary, but they figured out what they had to do to get a better crop to be able to sustain their life and the life of their family in the next year. And today, agriculture, including forestry, is the science there is very sophisticated. And there's been a lot of research done on science on natural-based solutions, and that research is really telling. When you look at the most recent data, and this was done over a series of number of years, a very credible source. I mean, these are folks that perhaps are maybe a little more progressive with most of their policies, but they recognize with their data that natural-based solutions sequesters approximately 6 gigatons of carbon out of the year annually.
Wow.
And then at the another study that showed that it already at this point sequesters enough carbon to offset carbon that's emitted in the practices we have in those natural-based lands. Plus, it was about 11.1% left over of additional sequestration above and beyond what's emitted in those lands. So it's an incredible solution. It can only be improved upon by the practices we have with conservation programs and precision agriculture. We know today that pasturing, livestock pasturing, helps stimulate root growth, which results in more carbon sequestration. There's it's just a very, very exciting opportunity of what our farmers and ranchers, our foresters, what they and our forest landowners, what they do for the environment.
Yeah, and you mentioned precision agriculture. I because I have a farm, I know what that means, but a lot of people don't know what it means. How would you describe that? What does that mean?
Yeah, precision agriculture is best defined, I think, as the application of technology, advanced technology into the practices of agriculture. So it's using farm equipment today that is designed to, when placed in the field, it will do an analysis on exactly what nutrient needs there are at a particular spot in a field, and will dispense just what's needed. Agriculture is a tough business, and if you let's say you over apply nutrients, or perhaps fertilizer, or maybe you're dealing with insecticides or pesticides or whatever what's going on. If you over apply that, then there's the potential that impacts the environment, right? More than what you need will not be absorbed into the soil, potentially wash off and hurt a watershed. But with precision agriculture, you're only providing exactly what you need where you need it. And number one, that's better for the environment. It's a great advancement. But number two, it's great for the farmer because the farmer can't afford to over apply resources. And as we approach this issue, John, of looking at climate. Now, I've always subscribed to what I personally have named principle-based leadership. Mm-hmm. And that's where, and I did this in my healthcare practice before, in my community work, and I brought it to Congress, where you define your principles ahead of time when you're tackling an issue. Right. And you allow that to be your true north, like on a compass to guide you with what you do. And the principles that guide our climate work, number one, and you made reference to this somewhat already in your remarks. Number one, first principle, you can't have a healthier environment without a healthier economy. It just doesn't work. You can't compromise one for the other. And number two, whatever we do should truly be science-based, not myth, not emotion. And number three, let's start with what we know works as a great starting point. And those are the kinds of things that actually programs that we've already authorized the past number of farm bills. The 2018 Farm Bill was probably the greenest farm bill we've ever done in history, and really laid the foundation for these programs that work well, not just for the environment, but also for the economy.
Yeah, that's great. One issue you mentioned in your op-ed too is no-till agriculture and no-till farming, and we're blessed to have a member of our advisory board named Justin Knopf. He's a farmer in Kansas. You may have read the book Farmer, Rancher, Fisherman and seen the movie. Justin is the farmer in that film and documentary. Very, very gifted, good friend of our mutual friend Tracy Mann, who serves with you in the Ag Committee. Tracy's one of my ag consultants. He'll provide free advice. So I have access to these world-class leaders. But I think the no-till farming issue is important, and it's different agriculture is quite different in the Midwest versus where we are in kind of the Mid-Atlantic. How widespread is no-till farming in your particular district?
I think it's made a significant presence. Obviously, the difference between Kansas one, the big one, where it's one of the biggest agricultural districts in the country, and those districts that we have in, let's say, Maryland, West Virginia, certainly Pennsylvania. It's a larger scale there, smaller here, but the practices still apply. And we're working hard actually to make it more affordable and incentivize, the application of precision agriculture practices. And no-till is an example of that. The no-till machinery is such that it doesn't disturb the soil or minimize disruption of the soil, as opposed to the old days where everything is plowed up. Well, when you break that soil, you basically release some of that carbon back into the air. When you do no-till, you're basically injecting into the soil, so you're mitigating or preventing the emission or the release of that carbon. We want to keep that carbon as much as we can in the soil, because you know what, it's helping to manufacture topsoil. So it's expanding the topsoil. When you look at the practices of healthy soil management, and I was proud of when I was co-chair of the subcommittee for conservation of forestry, watersheds, and soils. And I hosted the very first healthy soils hearing in Washington in Congress. And it's amazing to look how with these practices, you can take soil that, is not the best soil. It's very limited, maybe very sandy, but, it's not very, when you do soil samples, there's not a lot of good grown soil there. But with the right practices, you can actually expand that over years and increase the fertility of that soil to basically produce the food and fiber that we rely on.
Yeah, I think and as you describe the issue of climate and stewardship conservation, I've been around politics for a long time. I worked on the Hill for Tom Coburn, Jim DeMint, Steve Largent, pretty well-known conservative names. And it's kind of remarkable how this issue has shifted. But still, there are some people that say, look, if you're a conservative and you talk about climate change, you're by definition somehow ceding ground or giving a platform to the other side. And I suspect you strongly disagree with that. But how do you speak when you have these conversations with either your friends, constituents, members, colleagues who scratch their heads a little bit and think, why are conservatives talking about this? How do you approach that?
Well, first of all, I acknowledge that Republicans have not been at the table in any significant way on climate ever in the past. And I think when we've done that, we have ceded the narrative to the extreme liberal voices of the other side, and they don't approach climate in a principled manner. It's all really emotion and myth, and you scratch the surface and you find that they don't even have the science on their side, and they're not working with any proven practices. And so what I try to point out to my colleagues and quite frankly to conservatives is that it's Republican policies that have worked. We have just not taken credit for it. We have allowed bullseyes to be put on the back of our farmers and ranchers, and those families work so hard to provide every American with what they need to have.
And they care deeply about their own land.
They are the original stewards of the land, and so, because agriculture is science, technology, and innovation, and that's my first question for people when I'm having this discussion, do you believe that? And I think with a little bit of discussion, that's an easy thing to convince people that's the solution. I happen to believe that the solution to most major things our nation faces can be found and can be addressed and can be remedied is the application of science, technology, and innovation. And then I point out all the programs, what's out there. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked the first time that, and it was last year when I started really reading the data on the outcomes for the environment. I knew the economic benefits of what we put in the Farm Bill. I knew how that helped the rural economy and our farmers and ranchers. But I was blown away when I started to look at the research that's been done on the environmental benefits for what we do. And, and if this argument is about taking carbon out of the air, then the fact is it's Republican solutions that have done that. Republicans have led on really the most meaningful solution when it comes to the climate. And we do it in a way that we help to build help us build a robust rural economy, which is incredibly important. Helps keep our farmers and ranchers in business and farming, and some of the one of the things the arguments or one of the pieces of information I share is that the research shows that the number one thing that we could do to reduce greenhouse gases around the world is for American farmers and ranchers to grow more and export it. And
wow.
you start sharing the facts like that.
Yeah.
And it does, for a lot of people, the light bulb comes on. And I know this is, and it's different because a lot of elected officials, Republicans have not been at the table. We've mostly because I think we've recognized the myth and emotion behind what the other side tries to advance with climate. So it's great to be able to show the data, the science, the technology, and the innovation that actually does work.
Well, that's fantastic. And we certainly are grateful for your voice and leadership on this. And just to in closing, I'll put you on the spot. Obviously you hope that you'll become the chairman of the House Agricultural Committee in a couple of years. If you have that privilege and honor, what are your top priorities going to be on day one? If you get there?
Well, and I'm not one that that just campaigns when you're in a minority. We need to solve problems today, and so I appreciate I have a great relationship with Chairman Scott. He's a Chairman David Scott from Georgia. He's a gentleman, a statesman. He really does want to do bipartisan work, and so we're working on that right now. Right now, we're working hard to. We're trying to influence appropriations. We've already passed, one of our big issues that we need to have, certainly for precision agriculture, but just because of all the terrible lessons we've lived through with COVID is we need connectivity in rural America. And we've already in the 2018 Farm Bill have passed, we were kind of ahead of our time of authorizing some great programs that raise the standard of downloading and connectivity and innovation. And unfortunately, we haven't had, the Appropriations Committee has not funded those. And so we're working hard in this cycle to try to get those funded. And then connectivity is something that is a real priority of mine, obviously. And that has a bearing on precision agriculture and efficient practices on the farm and the ranch. And so this will help us on this climate issue as well. Now, we've also advanced, we've introduced 5 bills already. That's our first package. We're still working on, and these are climate related. These bills have there's one bill that works on precision agriculture in partnerships. There's setting up public-private partnerships. That's called the Sustains Act. That's a piece of legislation I've led on. We know that. For example, the EQIP program that we have through the Farm Bill, very effective in terms of healthier environment, healthier economy. But even in 2020, we had 90,000 applications that were submitted that were not able to be funded by USDA. Mm-hmm. So setting up a public-private partnership, where businesses who want to get their climate credentials, their sustainability credentials, could make a contribution into the USDA to allow us to fund more of those projects. The beauty of that is it makes it open and available, first of all, for businesses of all sizes. So small and medium-sized businesses can participate in that. Normally with traditional carbon markets, it's just the larger corporations and businesses that benefit. And because of, and on the benefit side, not just large farms, but small and medium-sized farms will greatly benefit from this as well. But we have a number of forestry bills, some restoration bills. But there are a package of 5 that we've introduced that really would have a significant, would take us from what is a great baseline for natural-based solutions today for sequestering carbon. And you know what? The sky's the limit here as we improve things.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Congressman, you've been very generous with your time, and thanks so much for visiting with us. Again, you can follow us at c3solutions.org, where you can read about our policy papers, some of the policy work that the Congressman's talked about. We have a news magazine as well called c3newsmag.com, and you can find our Right Voices series where we'll have this interview. And we have a growing collection of quotes from conservatives who are showing leadership in this space. So again, we're grateful for you, and hopefully look forward to visiting with you again soon about the ongoing work you're doing.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much for your leadership with C3. Much appreciated.
You bet. Thanks, Congressman. Have a great day.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.